parents, voices steady and firm as though this matter was nothing more than a business arrangement. Let us be honest. Mr. Kim said calmly, his hands folded neatly in front of him. Our son Taehyung has seen Wane and he wants to marry her. He doesn't want to bother dragging matters with pursuing, courting and all of that. He's a very workaholic, practical person. The words hit Wane like an arrow. She felt Saya's mischievous nudge against her arm and turned to see her twin grinning from ear to ear. Well, Saya whispered teasingly, her eyes twinkling. Looks like our practical CEO couldn't resist you. Who knew? Wane flushed crimson, glaring at her sister but unable to hide the way her chest swelled with a mixture of pride, nervousness and something she dared not name. Hope. Somewhere without her realizing when or how, she had fallen for Kim Taehyung. The officiant's voice suddenly pulled her back to reality. Wane's fingers nervously fidgeted with the hem of her gown as she lifted her gaze to Taehyung. He looked impossibly composed, handsome in his sharp suit, his expression unreadable. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribcage as the vows were recited, binding them together. When Taehyung leaned in, one hand firm around her waist, the kiss was brief yet consuming. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause as they pulled away, and though she smiled shyly, inside she trembled, overwhelmed by the enormity of what had just happened. Parents, friends, siblings, everyone came forward to congratulate them, offering warm wishes, but when Saya walked up hand in hand with her fiancé, her eyes glittered with mischief. Congratulations, sister. She teased twice, laced with playfulness. Now don't forget us little people once you are Mrs. Kim. Wane rolled her eyes, glaring playfully, but when she looked back and she noticed, Taehyung's expression had shifted. His brow furrowed as his gaze flipped from Wane to Saya. His jaw tightened, and though he said nothing, a shadow crossed his face. Why did he look unsettled? Wane's smile faltered, but she brushed it aside. It was probably nothing. Dinner was served, and the festivities continued until late. Eventually, after the guests bid their goodbyes, Wane found herself being escorted to the Kim residence. Her heart raced as she was led into Taehyung's bedroom, her new bedroom, the reality sinking in with each step. The room smelled faintly of cedar and clean linen. She stood in the middle, her hands twisting together nervously, cheeks burning. Taehyung entered behind her. His serious face made her breathe hedge, his dark eyes locked onto her, sharp and intense, pinning her in place. She fiddled with her fingers, unsure what to do under his cruelty, until he suddenly closed the distance between them. His forefinger gently tilted her chin upward. Wane, he whispered. Her heart skipped. She looked into his eyes and despite her nervousness, smiled widely. Dimples appearing on her cheeks, Taehyung froze, his eyes widened, flickering over her face. Something was wrong, his expression hardened. You? He muttered, blinking rapidly. You didn't have dimples. Wane's smile faltered. What? He stepped back abruptly, scanning her features as if searching for something. His voice sharpened, suspicious. Where are your glasses? Her brows knitted in confusion. Glasses? I don't wear glasses. The disbelief on his face cut her deeper than any knife could. He shook his head slowly, muttering almost to himself, You're not her. The words felt like a physical blow. Wane's stomach dropped, her chest tightening painfully. You mean, Saya? She whispered, barely able to force the words out. Taehyung's frown deepened. He repeated her sister's name, Saya. Wane's heart shattered into a million pieces. Her lips trembled as she whispered, You said you wanted to marry Wane. That's me. No, his voice was harsh, laced with frustration. He raked a hand through his hair, pacing. I saw her at Vestagia's party. Someone called her Wane. That's who I wanted. Her breath caught the room tilted. She shook her head, slowly numb. That was Saya. She doesn't go to parties, I do. That day she went. Everyone must have misunderstood. Taehyung's composure cracked. His jaw clenched as he stepped toward her, his hand closed firmly around her arm. His voice rose. You deceived me. Wane's eyes wide in disbelief, flooding her wings. Her pain morphed into anger as she nearly growled back. How come I deceived you when you didn't even check properly? This is your fault. You should have come yourself instead of sending your parents like this was some business deal. He shot back, his voice sharp, his frustration spilling over. Do you think I have the time to run around chasing after someone? What kind of feelings do you have that you couldn't even chase someone you liked? Did you really like her? Taehyung couldn't help but think if he really liked Saya to that extent. But then he heard the voice, no, he wasn't crazy about her. He was attracted to Saya because she was just his type. No deep feeling, nothing. Once just constricted, the man she had quietly loved all this time hadn't even seen her. He wanted her sister. Her voice cracked as she whispered, You ruined my life. The agony in her eyes made him falter. He looked away, jaw clenched, unable to meet her gaze. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, suffocating. Then without another word, he turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind him. Wane stood frozen, her world collapsing around her. Then slowly her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor. Tears spilled freely, unstoppable, as sobs racked her body. She clawed at her necklace, ripping it from her neck and threw it across the room. The crown slipped from her head, earrings clattering onto the floor as she gripped. Her cries filled the room raw and broken, until she could hardly breathe. The love she had dreamed of, the marriage she had clung to, it had all been a cruel mistake, and her heart lay in ruins. Skip. The next morning, the silence in the Kim family sitting room was suffocating. Wane stood pressed into a corner, her swollen red eyes lowered to the floor. She looked like a culprit, awaiting her sentence, cheeks burning with humiliation. Taehyung stood in the center, broad shoulders tense, his voice low but cutting. It wasn't wine, he declared. I saw Saya, not her. Mr. and Mrs. Kim both froze, exchanging a look of disbelief before their eyes shifted to wine. She bit her lips hard, refusing to meet their gaze, wishing the ground would swallow her whole. Mrs. Kim exhaled deeply, her tone calm but firm. So what if you saw Saya? This is your fault, Taehyung. You should have made sure who it was before demanding marriage. His jaw clenched, frustration radiating off him. He lowered his head, fingers curling into a fist as if trying to restrain himself. Mr. Kim's voice was stern, leaving no room for argument. Saya is already engaged. Even if you had known her from the beginning, you could not marry her. This cannot be revealed. It will bring shame to both families. You will continue with this marriage quietly. Taehyung groaned, dragging a hand through his hair, pacing a few steps before muttering, I don't know what to do. Control yourself. Mr. Kim's glare was sharp. The world does not stop for your confusion. You made vows yesterday. That is final. Of course I know. I made vows. Mrs. Kim turned her eyes toward Wine. Wine, come sit here. Her knees trembled, but she obeyed silently, moving from her corner to sit on the edge of the sofa. Taehyung's eyes flicked toward her once unreadable before he stormed out, his steps heavy. Mrs. Kim reached for Wine's hand, her voice softer. Don't worry, dear. Taehyung doesn't neglect his responsibilities. He will come around in time. But Wine could only think responsibilities. Was that all she was to him? A duty, a burden to be carried? Her heart twisted painfully. She nodded, her voice steady though her chest ached. I won't tell my parents anything, but you can't stop me from making my own decisions. Both Mr. and Mrs. Kim exchanged a glance, then nodded. Whatever you decide will stand by you. Later that day, Wine quietly shifted into another bedroom. Then Saya called her at evening, teasing her in usual way. Wine forced a laugh, her voice sweet as honey. I'm so happy, Saya, she said. You wouldn't believe it. But once she hung up, her hand trembled around the phone. She didn't let her family hear the cure in her voice, didn't let anyone see how hollow her heart had become. She began buying her own groceries, refusing to be pitied or kept. She cooked for herself, ate alone, and cleaned up after herself. As usual, Taehyung was drowned in work, leaving early, coming home late. Rumors whispered outside proved true. Kim Taehyung was married to his laptop and phone, but what haunted him wasn't Saya's engagement, nor even the truth that Wine wasn't the girl he had mistaken. It was the humiliation he, the Kim Taehyung, the great businessman, had been deceived. His eyes deceived him. One night he returned home, shoulders heavy with exhaustion. Passing the kitchen, his steps faltered. Laughter. One sat at the table, yapping lightly with a maid while nibbling at her food. Her smile lit her face, dimples deepening as she laughed. His heart stuttered, his chest clenched. He quickly shook his head, dismissing it, and walked away. This morning weekend, for once he found her again. She sat in the living room, carefully bandaging a maid's haircut head, murmuring softly with concern. The gentleness in her voice lingered long after she tied the cloth. Taehyung's eyes lingered longer than he realized. After her gaze suddenly met his, her eyes once glowing when they looked at him had turned cold. At breakfast, he noticed her absence. For the first time, he felt restless, waiting for her. But she never came. He overheard his mother asking the maid, Has Wine eaten? As usual, the maid replied. She cooked for herself early this morning. Before he knew it, the words slipped from his mouth. Why doesn't she eat at the table? Mrs. Kim showed him a look. If you were home often, you would know. Don't ask the maid when you could ask your wife. Mr. Kim added quietly. She doesn't want a penny from you, Taehyung. He clenched the fork in his hand, his appetite gone. Wine was unknowingly consuming his thoughts, threading through every corner of his mind like poison. Now unable to sleep, he wandered into the living room and sat cross-legged on the rug, her eyes glued to a car race on the television. She was cheering, excitement bubbling in her voice as she also spoke, and immediately took to his cat perched beside her as though it were her confidant. He found himself smiling faintly before quickly straightening, shaking off the thought. She hadn't even noticed him, but when she finally did, her body stiffened. She scooted away slightly as if his presence burned her skin. The memory of her wedding day glow hit him. Her eyes had shone differently then. Now they were guarded, frozen, like a door slammed shut. He exhaled deeply, lowering himself into an armchair. There's a small gathering tomorrow, he said casually, pretending not to notice her distance. Relatives, business partners, I thought you should know. She gave him a brief note, then unexpectedly he said, I was expecting you to fight me. Her bitter chuckle cut through the quiet like a blade. Her eyes lifted to his cold and stating, why would I fight for someone who never wanted me in the first place? She asked, her voice didn't tremble. You think I'll beg for scraps of affection? No, Mr. Kim, I would rather stand alone. Nothing works one-sided. Efforts are required from both sides. The worst feels deeper than she could imagine. He clenched his jaw, looking away because her truth burned him more than any insult. She rose gracefully, her silence heavier than her words, and walked to her room, leaving him rooted in his chair. His head fell back against the cushion, a long breath escaping his lips. She's a different piece, he muttered, a unique one. Then he blinked, sitting upright, whispering to himself, something must be wrong with me. Because Wine, his wife, was consuming him, mind and heart like slow poison, and he couldn't understand it. Next day. The grand hall glittered with chandeliers, the air filled with the hum of polite conversation and and soft classical music. Wang walked into the venue alongside Mr. and Mrs. Kim, her elegant dress brushing the floor as she glanced around nervously. Tim wasn't there. He was supposed to come directly from his office, but her heart leaped when her eyes landed on her parents, and Saya and Noah. Her lips stretched into a wide grin, eyes sparkling in a way they hadn't in days. Without thinking, she broke into a run, waving through the crowd. Mom, Dad, she cried, throwing herself into their arms. Her parents stood over her, patting her back, kissing her hair. My baby girl, we missed you so much. Her mother whispered tearfully, I missed you too. Wang whispered back, her heart aching at the familiar warmth. Pulling away, she turned to Saya, who was already holding her arms out. The twins collided into a bone-crushing hug, clinging to each other as if time itself had separated them. I missed you so much, Wang whispered. I missed you more. Saya answered, her voice breaking. Mr. and Mrs. Kim busied themselves with Wang's parents, exchanging pleasantries while Noah leaned against a pillar with a teasing grin. Well, he drawled. Mrs. Kim herself has graced us. Look at you, glowing and fancy. Should I go? Wang rolled her eyes, sweating at him. Save your athletics, Noah. You would trip halfway through. Their banter earned a laugh from Saya, but her smile faded as she studied her sister. Something about Wang's usual charm was off. Her eyes no longer held the same sparkle. Her skin looked pale even under layers of makeup. Saya grasped Wang's hand tightly. Are you okay? She asked in a low tone. Wang blinked at her, feigning confusion. Why? You have lost weight and your face is pale even with makeup. Saya's voice was worried, almost pleading. Wang's throat constricted. She cleared it quickly, forcing a smile. I was running a light fever last night, that's all, don't worry. Saya hesitated, her brows knitting, but before she could press for the nose, playful voice rang again. Well. Look who finally decided to show up. Wang turned and her breath caught. Taehyung had arrived. His eyes immediately found her freezing mid-step. The sight of her made his heart stutter violently. His gaze roamed her figure slowly, intently, as if memorizing every detail. For a split second, he forgot how to breathe. She looked breathtakingly beautiful. A faint smile tugged at his lips, soft, rare, genuine, but Wang looked away. Her heart twisted, convincing herself he was smiling at Saya, not her. Taehyung closed the distance, reaching for her hand. His palm was warm against hers as he leaned close, his breath rushing her ear. If duty were a crime, he whispered smoothly, you would be serving a life sentence, wife. Her stomach flipped, her chest constricting painfully. She almost dropped right there, but she steeled herself, glaring at him. Leave my hand. He shrugged casually, his voice husky. I didn't hold it to leave. Her eyes darted away, cheeks burning. Yo, bro, shower your love later. We are still here. Taehyung turned to Noah and Saya at Noah's teasing. Sorry for not greeting you too earlier, he said politely. Then smirking, he added, I was a little distracted by my gorgeous wife. Saya laughed, Noah chuckled, but Wang's lips didn't twitch. Her heart hurt too much. His hand slid to the small of her back as he continued talking with Noah, guiding her protectively. Every touch, every glance was deliberate, and though she tried to appear indifferent, her heart betrayed her, beating wildly. But then it shattered. She glanced up at him at the same time he glanced sideways at Saya. Saya clinging to Noah's arm and laughing. The pang in her chest was unbearable. She lowered her gaze quickly, fighting tears while Taehyung, oblivious to the knife twisting in her, couldn't help but think. Wang is different, unique, masterpiece. She has a presence that no one else does. Thank God she's my wife. He almost felt grateful, but before he could process it, Wang suddenly jerked his hand away and called out brightly, Rin. A young man approached and Wang practically ran into his arms. Her smile widened, eyes lighting up in a way Taehyung had never seen before. Taehyung froze, his expression darkening. That's Rin, Wang's best friend. Saya explained innocently, his jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He couldn't stand the sight of her showing her dimples for another man. Taehyung mingled with business partners, but his attention kept drifting toward Wang. She was surrounded by her old friends, Rin among them. Wang lost her charm. Someone remarked near him, Saya shines brighter than Wang now. You would think she was the one married. Taehyung's teeth grounded together. When Rin drifted off to speak with someone else, Wang was left alone. Her eyes found Saya across the hall, smiling shyly at something Noah whispered in her ear. A lump formed in Wang's throat. Saya loved by two men once, jealous, chosen. She lowered her head quickly, blinking away tears. Wang, a low voice called, she's different. Taehyung's arm slid around her waist, pulling her close. Come, he said smoothly. I want to introduce you to someone. Her heart thudded, but her lips quivered bitterly. Why are you pretending? His smirk was maddening. Why would I pretend? He leaned and pressed a long kiss to her temple. You're my wife, and I rather like showing you off. Her blood boiled still. He guided her across the floor, introducing her proudly. This is my wife, Wang. He said, his voice affectionate, his hand possessive at her waist. The couple stared at her with a smile and greeted her, their eyes shone with admiration. Stunning, isn't she? Taehyung glanced at Wang, and for a brief second his gaze lingered like he couldn't look away. Wang blinked, startled by the weight of his tone. There was no hesitation, no embarrassment, only certainty. For a brief, dangerous moment, she believed him. For a moment, her heart whispered, maybe he's thrilled. A few more people joined and he introduced them. One of the men chuckled lightly, greeting Wang and said, the wife of Kim Taehyung, you must be extraordinary to catch him. He never gives his time to anyone. Wang flushed, about to downplay herself, but Taehyung cut in smoothly. Extraordinary doesn't even begin to describe her. The men laughed in approval, but Wang froze. Her heart skipped at the unexpected praise. She tilted her head slightly to him, whispering so only he could hear it. Why are you saying things you don't mean? Taehyung's lips curled faintly, his eyes never leaving her. He whispered softly, who said I don't mean it? She sighed, looking away, but as soon as the introductions were over, she pulled away coldly. I'm going to find Ring. She walked off without looking back. Once more she left him for that man. Taehyung's insides twisted with irritation. He wanted to drag her back, lock her away where no one else could look at her. Ring made him feel murderous. He gulped down a glass of wine, the burn doing nothing to ease the turmoil in his chest. The rest of the night he didn't see her, not until dinner, when she appeared polite and beautiful, but never once came near him. And on the drive back she rode with Mr. and Mrs. King, Taehyung's hand tightened on the steering wheel of his car. Frustration boiled inside him, gnawing at his composure. She's consuming me and I can't even understand what to do. Asked him. The day after the party, when Wine entered her room, only to find the wardrobe half empty, her books, trinkets, and even her pillow were missing. Frowning, she stormed into Taehyung's room, only to see all her belongings neatly placed there. Her favorite books on the nightstand, her clothes arranged beside his suits, even her hair was set on the dresser. Mr. Kim, she barred her eyes blazing. Taehyung loosened his tie afterward, glanced at her with a calm face. Yes, wife. Don't wife me, who told you to touch my things? She hissed. He tilted his head, amused at her fury, and answered with infuriating calmness. I never kicked you out of the room, Wine. That was never an option. My wife lives where her husband is. Her fist clenched. Stop pretending. You obviously didn't want this marriage. He froze, his eyes flickering. For a long moment he just stared at her, his jaw tightening. Then slowly he stepped closer until she had to tilt her chin to meet his gaze. I'm sorry, he said softly, almost vulnerably. I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. I'll make it up to you. She ripped her hands out of his hold and chuckled bitterly. Don't pretend, Mr. Kim, just because this face. She pointed to her own trembling face. Is the same as hers. His gaze darkened. In one swift move, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her closer, their breaths mingling. I don't care about her, he said with a low, steady intensity. I don't need her. It's don't. She snapped, pushing him hard. Just hear it. Don't say it. You have got the same face, so now you can do your time pass with this pistol, right? The words stabbed him deeper than he expected. Just then her phone rang. The name lit up Rin. Her voice softened immediately when she answered, and the glow on her face nearly drove him insane. His fists cold. He hated the way she smiled while speaking to that man. He hated that she never softened like that with him. She hung up, turning to him, her expression once again cold, composed. I'll tell you my decision when I achieve my dream, she muttered, her voice like steel. She started to leave. Where are you going? His voice was rough, demanding. She stopped, her back stiff but didn't turn around. Wine, his voice broke slightly. I'm your husband. She didn't reply. She walked out. Taehyung's ground filled the room as he punched the wall, pain shooting through his hand. His mind was chaos. The days that followed, Taehyung became a man obsessed without realizing it. He started coming home early, waiting by the window or on the couch like some fool. He made sure her favorite dishes were on the table, though he never admitted he asked the cook specifically. If she fell asleep on the couch, he lifted her carefully, covering her with blanket, muttering, You're going to catch a cold, stubborn wife. If she stayed out late, he texted her short, bland messages. Where are you? When are you coming back? When she ignored him, he would sit in the driveway waiting until her car pulled up. But Wine, she remained cool. Every little thing he did, she cut it down. When he teased her about her beauty, she would say, Stop pretending. When he offered to drive her, she would answer, You don't have to force yourself. When he brushed her hair out of her face at breakfast, she would mutter, Don't act like you care. And then he smiled bitterly. But he never stopped. One night she was sprawled on the couch, asleep with papers scattered around. Taehyung came home, loosened his tie and stood over her. For a long moment he just stared. Even when you're frowning in your sleep, you're beautiful. He whispered. He crouched down, brushing her hair aside, his fingers lingering on her cheek, her lips parted in her dreams. His chest tightened painfully. I don't want her. He murmured to her sleeping form, I want you. But when she woke up the next morning and found herself tucked into his bed, she stormed out, snapping, Don't carry me like some doll. Stop pretending to be nice when we both know the truth. Taehyung only leaned against the door frame, smirking faintly despite the stink. Pretending, no wife. I just like having you where you belong. Beside me, her glare could have burned holes in him, but the blush on her cheeks he noticed. Taehyung had never been the type to linger at breakfast. He usually skimmed the newspaper, gave short, cold replies, and left before his coffee cooled, but these days he was different. Why notice, though she pretended not to. One morning she sat down, reaching for her toes, only for her chair to scrape loudly against the floor. She froze. Then had pulled it closer, their arms brushing. Eat near me, wife. He said casually, taking a sip of coffee as if it were the most natural thing. She narrowed her eyes, Mr. Kim, I don't need. You do, he interrupted smoothly. And stop calling me that, I'm your husband, remember. She huffed, biting into her toast without answering. He smiled, watching her cheeks puff up. Another morning he stood by the mirror with his tie hanging loose. Tie this for me. She blinked. Excuse me, I'm not good at it. He lied shamelessly. You have worn suits for years. He leaned down, lowering his face until their noses almost brushed. I only want you to tie it now. Her fingers trembled as she fixed the knot, his eyes never leaving hers. When she was done, she showed him lightly in the chest. Go to work. Instead of leaving, he leaned in, his lips brushing her ear. You're blushing, Mrs. Kim. Stop pretending. She snapped, walking away before he could see the heat on her cheeks. In the kitchen, when she ignored him and tried to reach past him for a glass, he suddenly cornered her against the counter, one arm caging her in. You can't ignore me forever, he murmured. She only glared at him. He chuckled low and warm, then stole her pen during dinner while she was scribbling notes. Give it back, Mr. Kim, said please. She growled, snatched it from him and stormed away. He only laughed, shaking his head. Even Mr. and Mrs. Kim noticed. His mother whispered to his father one evening, have you noticed? Our son smiles more these days. He talks more. His father nodded, stunned. The cold workaholic thing was gone. What remained was a man who couldn't stop orbiting around his wife. Meanwhile, Wine was pouring her heart into practicing for the car racing competition. She practically begged Rin to let her join. Are you sure? Rin had asked concerned. Your husband, he doesn't need to know. her voice firm. Late one night, grease smudged across her face. She was crouched over her car, hands busy, when a deep voice chattered her. "You look dangerous like this." She glanced up and stood there, in rolled-up sleeves, his tie gone, watching her. He walked closer, crouched, and with his thumb wiped the grease from her cheek. Her breath hissed, his voice was husky when he whispered, "I want to see your dimples, show me." She stiffened, pulling back. "Don't say things you don't mean." He exhaled, frustrated, but let her go. Now the club was buzzing, lights glaring over the track. Crowds cheered as the competitors lined up. In the 𝐕𝐕IP lounge, Taehyung sat with his PA, unaware of the shock awaiting him. And now the final contestant. The announcer boomed, "Wine." Taehyung's glass still in his hand. On the giant screen there she was, hair tied, racing suit hugging her frame, confidence radiating from her like fire. The crowd erupted. Wine smiled at something Rin said, her dimples flashing. Taehyung's blood boiled. His hand clenched so hard the glass nearly cracked, and then Rin leaned in casually, adjusting her helmet strap. Taehyung's eyes were glued to the screen. The engines roared. The race began. Cars flew down the track, drifting at impossible angles. Commentators shouted. The crowd screamed. Taehyung's heart thudded each time Wine her car, nearly sending her spinning out of control. He bolted upright, but she recovered, controlled the skid with breathtaking skills. The crowd went wild, and the winner, Wine. The club erupted with cheers. Wine stepped out, radiant, glowing with victory. Rin ran to her, pulling her into a hug. Taehyung's last thread snapped. The glass shattered in his hand. His smile vanished. His jaw clenched so tight his PA feared his teeth would break. "You did it, you actually did it. You are flying out there. God, I thought my heart would stop." Rin said, squeezing her. Wine laughed, breathlessly pulling out, still buzzing with the thrill of victory. "You told you I would win. The track is mine." But before they could bask in triumph, heavy footsteps approached her opponent, the one who had nearly clipped her car and set her spinning, stormed toward them, face red with rage. "That win was bullshit. You cut me off." He lashed out furiously. Wine raised her brows, coughing. "Funny. I don't remember almost crashing myself into the barrier. Oh wait, that was you trying to sabotage me." He pointed a finger at her face. "You got lucky. You won't next time." He then cursed at her under his breath. Rin stepped and grabbed his collar, growling, "Back off, you're mad because you lost fair and square. Don't take it out on her." The man sneered, his voice dripping venom. "Fair and square. I could crush her in the first lap if I wanted. You don't belong here, sweetheart. Stick to dolls and nail polish." Rin pushed him while Taehyung watched him with a frown. Wine's jaw clenched, but before she could retort, a shrill laugh rang out. His girlfriend, all dolled up in flashy clothes, stepped closer, eyes raking Wine with mockery. "Please look at her. She's just another cheap little thrill who got lucky tonight. Probably wins race the same way she wins men on her knees." The words hit like a blade. The crowd hushed, the insult sharp enough to sting even those watching. For a split second, Wine's face went completely still. Then she moved. She lunged forward with the precision of someone who wasn't just throwing a fight, but owned it. One clean hit, her fist connected squarely with the girl's face, snapping her head back. Gasps erupted from the onlookers. The girlfriend staggered, trying to retaliate, but Wine was faster, sharp, and professional. Each move was deliberate, swift jabs, controlled blows, enough to prove dominance without losing control. The girl had no chance to defend herself, stumbling backward, mascara streaming from her boyfriend was trying to get to Wine, but Rin grabbed him, throwing fist at him. Taehyung quickly walked out of his room, yelling at the organizer. The crowd went wild, cheers, whistles, chaos. Security rushed in shouting. Rin immediately grabbed Wine from behind, arms wrapped tightly around her waist, driving her back as Wine's chest heavied with fury. Wine's fists were still trembling, her lip curled in a feral grin as she glared at the girlfriend who now covered behind the opponent. "Say one more word about me, and you'll live here in an ambulance." Wine yelled at the girl. "All right, Wine, you made your point. Now stop, you'll be disqualified from internationals if you don't stop." Rin hissed, "Who dares to disqualify my wife?" The voice was cold, slicing through the noise like steel. All heads turned. Taehyung stood down the stairs, his aura dark and dangerous. "Mr. Kim," the organizer stuttered. Wine froze, staring at him in disbelief. The opponent sneered, "She assaulted my girlfriend also." Taehyung stepped on Wine's side, his hand closing gently around her wrist. His gaze was deadly calm. "Did anyone see my wife hit her?" Silence, no one dared. The opponent smirked. "It's recorded." Taehyung's eyes flicked to the organizer, who instantly shook his head. "No recording, sir. We don't keep any." The opponent paled. Taehyung's voice cut the air. "Make sure I never see him again." The organizer scrambled to obey. The crowd dispersed in fear. "I'll call the nurse." Rin muttered and slipped away. Taehyung turned back, his gaze softening as he landed on her. "Congratulations, Mrs. Kim," she snorted. "Save it." But before she could walk away, he scooped her up effortlessly and sat her on the car bonnet. Her lips parted, ready to retort. Then she saw his hand bleeding. What happened? She blurred, reaching for it. He shook his head. "It's nothing." A nurse arrived, reaching for her scratches, but Wine stopped her. "Treat him first, his hand is bleeding." They glared at each other. Finally, Taehyung let the nurse tend to Wine's scratches. She closed her arms, fuming. The nurse treated her scratches and then bandaged Taehyung's hand. Before walking away, Wine moved to climb down. His hands slammed against the car on either side of her, trapping her. "Don't play with death, Wine," he whispered harshly. "You're not allowed to race again." She glared back. "Rin has worked so hard for me. I'm not backing off, and you're no one to stop me." His blood boiled. He leaned in, lips brushing her ear. "Don't let that friend of yours hug you again. You're married now." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Don't test me, Wine," he growled softly. "You're mine. What? Whether you believe it or not, you're mine." Her heart stuttered, but she masked it with a bitter laugh. "Stop pretending you wanted her, not me. I won't be your replacement." His jaw tightened. He wanted to shout to explain, but not here. Not in front of so many people. So he only stepped back, grabbed her hand and led her away. He drove her home in silence. She collapsed onto the couch, exhausted and dragging her into sleep. He stood over her for a long time, brushing her hair back, his chest aching. I don't want her, he whispered to the sleeping girl. I only want you. He stepped outside, lit one cigarette after another, burning through the night. Smoke curled around him. His mind, a mess, she had consumed him entirely.